Moderna gets closer to a COVID-19 vaccine, Johnson Johnson moves away from talc-based powders, Luckin Coffee resumes trading, and a host of retailers provide earnings. This is the Civil Reports Weekly Review, where we take a look at the headlines that move the markets during the week and all things investment related. On Monday, the markets had a big day. The Dow closed up 911 points, the S&P closed up 90 points, and the Nasdaq closed up 220 points. Positive sentiment from Jerome Powell and good news from drug maker Moderna helped to boost the markets on Monday. Jerome Powell made an appearance on CBS's 60 Minutes on Sunday and stated that a recovery is possible in the second half of the year. On Monday, Powell stated again that the Federal Reserve would use its full range of tools to aid the economy. Drug maker Moderna released early data from a phase 1 clinical trial for its coronavirus vaccine. The FDA approved Moderna to move forward to a phase 2 trial. Uber announced its plans to cut 3,000 jobs. The stock rose on the news. The company was also said to be considering reducing its investments in some of its non-core projects. Airline stocks jumped on Monday on optimistic data from TSA, showing an improvement in airline travel. Passenger travel was down 91% for the week ending May 15th, a slight improvement from the prior week and from lows of a 96% year-over-year decline in mid-April. On Tuesday, markets gave back some of Monday's gains. The Dow closed down 390 points, the S&P closed down 30 points, and the Nasdaq closed down 49 points. Tuesday saw Fed Chairman Jerome Powell and Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin testify in front of the Senate Banking Committee about why the $2 trillion economic relief package approved by Congress has been unspent. Mnuchin advised that they are aiming to have lending programs that were planned for small businesses up and running by the end of the month. While that had some impact on the markets, the news that moved the markets the most was an article by Stat News discussing the Moderna COVID-19 vaccine. The article pointed out that there wasn't enough information provided by Moderna for the science community to get excited about the company's phase 1 trials. In other news, Johnson Johnson announced it will stop selling its talc-based baby powders in North America. Johnson Johnson has spent several years fighting claims that its talc-based powders cause cancer. On Tuesday, we got earnings from Walmart, Home Depot, and Khol. Walmart reported a revenue beat by $3.7 billion and an EPS beat by 9 cents. U.S. comparable sales rose 10% in Q1, international sales were up 3.4%, and Sam's Club sales increased 9.6%. Home Depot reported a revenue beat by $690 million but missed on EPS by 18 cents. Comparable store sales rose 6.4% during the quarter, and U.S. comp sales rose 7.5%, above estimates of 5.8%. And Kohl's reported an EPS miss by $1.44 but beat revenue estimates by $280 million. The company didn't report comparable sales due to store closures. Kohl's did report it reopened about 50% of its stores. On Wednesday, the markets bounced back. The Dow closed up 369 points, the S&P closed up 48 points, and the Nasdaq closed up 190 points. Investors got bullish off of good earnings reports from a few retailers. Some other news that moved the markets on Wednesday came from Facebook, who announced their Shops platform, which looks to help small businesses and stimulate commerce on the Facebook and Instagram platforms. Facebook's stock price hit an all-time high following the announcement. In marijuana news, Aurora Cannabis purchased CBD brand Reliva for $40 million. The acquisition gives Aurora a foothold in the U.S. market. Reliva sells products in 20,000 retail locations in the U.S. Luckin Coffee resumed trading on Wednesday after being halted for several weeks. Nasdaq stated it plans to delist the company. This occurred as the Senate passed a bill that calls for more oversight on Chinese listed companies in the U.S., requiring the companies to submit to audits that can be viewed by the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board. In earnings news that moved the markets, Target reported an EPS beat by 19 cents and a revenue beat by $580 million. Revenue grew 11% year over year, and comparable sales grew 10.8% versus the 7.5% that was expected. Lowe's reported an EPS beat by 45 cents and a revenue beat by $1.3 billion. Revenue increased 10.9% year over year, and comparable store sales increased 11.2% versus the 4% consensus. But L Brands reported an EPS miss by 25 cents and a revenue miss by $70 million. Revenue was down 37% year over year. Victoria's Secret sales fell 13% during the quarter, and the company announced that it would close 23% of its Victoria's Secret stores. And then there was Take-Two Interactive, which reported an EPS miss by 17 cents, but a total net bookings beat by $143 million. Total net bookings increased 49% year over year. The stock sold off in after-hours trading. Investors don't expect the company to maintain the current pace post-coronavirus crisis. On Thursday, markets started up but eventually closed lower on the day. The Dow closed down 54 points, the S&P closed down 14 points, and the Nasdaq closed down 57 points. 2.4 million people filed unemployment claims last week, which was slightly above what analysts and economists expected. The National Association of Retailers announced previously owned home sales were down in April 17.8%, and the U.S. Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index, the PMI, improved to 39.8 in May from 36.1 in April. In earnings news, Best Buy reported an EPS beat by 26 cents and a revenue beat by $300 million. Revenue was down 6% year over year, and comparable sales in the U.S. fell 5.7% during the quarter. Nvidia reported an EPS beat by 12 cents and a revenue beat by $80 million. Revenue grew 38.7% year over year. Revenue in gaming was up 27%. Data center revenue was up 80%, but automotive revenue was down 7%. On Friday, markets were down early but battled back before the start of the three-day weekend. The Dow closed down 8 points but was down as much as 160 points earlier in the day. The S&P closed up 6 points and the Nasdaq closed up 39 points. In news out of Beijing, Chinese officials declined to provide an annual gross domestic product target for the country's economic growth for the first time since they began providing the number in 1994. However, China did declare it will impose a national security law on Hong Kong, which could bring an end to Hong Kong's unique freedoms, as well as disrupt the markets. In more news from China, Alibaba reported earnings. The company reported an EPS beat by 44 cents and a revenue beat by $860 million. Alibaba stated the pandemic did impact its domestic core commerce business starting in late January, but it's observed a steady recovery since March. Footlocker reported an EPS miss by 44 cents and a revenue miss by $130 million. Comp store sales fell 42.8% versus the 34.5% consensus. Ouch. And Deere reported an EPS beat by 53 cents and a revenue beat by $540 million. Worldwide net sales decreased for Deere 18% year over year, and the company lowered its net income target from $2.7 to $3.8 billion to $1.6 to $2 billion. Overall, the markets closed up on the week. The Dow and S&P 500 closed up 3.2%, and the Nasdaq closed up 3.4% on the week. In crypto news, Bitcoin continues to retrace further away from the $10,000 level. Bitcoin was trading at $9,171 to close out our week, down 2.8% from where it was last week. Ethereum gained 5.3% on the week and was trading at $207.59. Litecoin was trading at $44, up 2% from last week. And Ripple was trading at 20 cents, up 5% from last week. Crude oil continued to rise. It closed the week out at $31.95 per barrel, up 7.7% from last week. A big winner for the week was Arconic Corp, which increased 54% following an upgrade by Credit Suisse to outperform. A big loser for the week was Aprea Therapeutics, which lost 19% of its value during the week following its earnings release last week. That's a wrap for this week's market review. If you want to dig deeper into the headlines we covered, the links to the stories are in the description below, and a link to sign up to our weekend article in Focus is also in the description below. Thanks again for checking out the Silver Reports market review. This channel is dedicated to anyone who wants to start investing but doesn't know how or where to start. If you have any questions, ask in the comment section, like and subscribe, and may your next investment be your best investment. See you next week.